This is Matthew McConaughey.
Natalie Portman.
James Patterson.
Michael Ian Black.
And you are listening to
5 Questions
with Dan Schawbel.
Ryan, welcome to 5 Questions.
Thanks for having me.
How did your parents encourage you to play music and sing starting at age 3? And what role do they play in your career today?
I was forced to. So encouragement would be like a very loose term. That would be very generous. At age 3, here's a piano. You're taking lessons. And then that was up until age 12. It was like, you're not getting out of this. If you want to play drums, you got to play piano. And then finally, I quit. And at age 11 or 12, I got frustrated with my piano teacher. I got in a fight with him. And then about a month after I stopped taking lessons, I started playing for fun. And then I became obsessed. So, but all those initial lessons were what got me to have the dexterity and the ability to find any melody and all those things. As far as encouraging me beyond that, they bought me a drum kit when I was 12. There you go.
Okay. Yeah, my parents forced me to play piano, but then gave up after a year. I'm like, I'm doing this for you. I'm going to have a great recital, but this isn't for me long term.
That happens a lot. A lot of classical music. And then my mom, they thought that I would make a great attorney.
Oh God. You know what's interesting? A lot of people who go to law school or are lawyers, they drop out or quit to be in creative professions. I've seen that. That's been a big trend over the years.
Yeah, it definitely happens a lot. I mean, look, one of the songwriters signed to me. I signed him. He's probably 31, 32. I signed him over a year ago, 6 months into working with him. I was like, what's your story? And he goes, well, I didn't really get into music until like my mid to late 20s, after college and going into finance in New York. I was like, what? He's like, yeah, I went to Yale. And I was like,
wow.
To this day, he's the only Ivy League songwriter I've ever met.
Very interesting. But that also makes him stand out as well.
It does. Well, he's smart. He signed to me. I attribute it to the Yale finance degree.
Yeah. Speaking of your childhood and, growing up, you didn't grow up with much money and you graduated college fully in debt. How have these life circumstances affected your relationship with money now that you're wealthy?
I had this conversation. I can't believe you just asked me that question. That's so wild. I had this exact conversation yesterday with a new friend of mine, Rob McElhaney, the star of Always Sunny in Philadelphia and the guy that created it and Mythic Quest. And we ended up on the same place on vacation a year ago and hit it off. And then we have a mutual friend who introduced us, and we discovered that our upbringings were very, very similar. I'll just leave it at that. Financially, there were moments in my very young age where, the first, let's say 7 years of my life were, well below the poverty line. I'm not trying to give it a woe is me story, but like here's the poverty line, here's us for pretty much the first 7 years of my life. Then my mom got remarried, but it was a very, very frugal upbringing, and there was no excess. So that sticks with you. And Rob and I yesterday discussed how the hustle that I have and I have side hustles all the time, right? Music is my main love. That's my passion. But I'm doing venture capital or commercial real estate or starting a business and investing in dozens and dozens of companies. That, without question, first of all, you like to win. So there's that kind of mentality that's hardwired into me from sports for like years and years. But when you couple that, the desire to win at something, that like competitive nature, when you couple that with the memory of debt, the memory of not having money, and it's really the memories that I have are mostly not from my childhood. It's like after college when I had, I think about 40 grand in debt. It's an albatross. I would lose sleep. I would get like heart murmurs. It's like the side of financial stress might be the single worst kind of stress on earth.
It is. And it affects everything else. It affects relationships.
Financial stress and then maybe health. Like marital stress. Those two things will destroy your health.
And most marriages end in divorce because of money.
Exactly. So I would say that it has given me a profound value for every dollar. It's definitely driven me to not rest on my laurels just on music. I mean, there are years where I don't have hits. There are years where, like a pandemic, where you can't tour. And I think, so I've spent the last, probably starting in 2008, when I first made money, I built a house that we could live in, and then I bought an apartment building, and then I invested in an Israeli tech company. And then I was like, because I was like, if I don't write another hit, if something goes wrong, if I get injured, blah, 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 what if? And there's always that what if. I'm now kind of crossing into a place where I don't want that to consume me. Like, because you can go from preservation to greed. The line is razor thin. And it's important that you understand where that line is, so you don't just become a more is more person, where you're just, I need more. But most of the people I know that didn't come from money, Gary Vee is a close friend of mine. I was literally texting with him right now, and he's
been on the show.
The same thing. Yeah, Gary. Yeah, he's insatiable. We're like texting about NFTs right now. And he's wired on another level. He makes me look like I'm standing still.
Yeah.
But he is very much raised the same way. And so he has that come from nothing, he's from Belarus, but like, you can't ever get rid of it. You just can't get rid of it. But now what I'm trying to do is take the money I've made, and I don't like to buy things. If anything, I'm addicted to reinvesting. That's like my biggest problem. But
that's a great problem.
It is. Like, I looked at my biggest expenditures every year is just investing. I like my favorite for the rest of my life. It's about experiences. And I've always valued experiences more than material objects. I don't need another watch. I don't need another car. I can only drive one. I don't collect vacation homes. I like to pay for friends and family, like 15 people to go on a vacation together. And that's really what money, if it's impacted me, we've been able to help lots of people with donations. Then we've been able to, it's allowed me to take family members and friends to places in the world that they otherwise would not go or couldn't afford to go. So that's really how money has impacted my life. You can't be buried with it. Nobody cares if you're the richest guy in the grave. So you have to figure out its utility while you're alive, and then don't leave so much to your kids that you destroy them.
Yeah. And it's an enabler too. Like, if you want to do something, you now can do it. And it also serves as a reminder of what it was like when you were in debt. You don't want to be in that position again. So you're going to make decisions to not end up where you were in the past.
100%. And the people I know that have, done the best. I know guys that have done very well in music for a period of time, but the people that blow me away, that impress me, are the ones that, even if they only had a 4 or 5 year run, are the ones that, the countless artists that had a 4 or 5 year run. If you're lucky, you get a 4 or 5 year run. If you're lucky, and they spent it all. That you can follow their Instagram and see where all those dollars went via the chains and the necklaces and the cars and the chartering other people's private jets, and you can disintegrate, an unbelievable pile of cash so quickly if you go down that road. The ones that impressed me the most are the guys that quietly took some of what they made, and then you find out 5 years later that they were the first investor in Sweetgreen or in Coinbase, you know what I mean? Or Nas and his most recent ventures. Like, that stuff, that's, to me, that's savage. And that's more what I've tried to lean towards. It's like building up moats of defense, and diversity is key, so that when that terrible year hits or terrible 5 years hit, you've got these other things that are generating cash flow, so your lifestyle stays the same. And that's really the objective.
This is honestly, I wasn't thinking exactly like this in my 20s. It was more of just hustling and building and building.
Yeah.
Now my 30s, honestly, I feel the exact same way as you. I'm like, okay, cash flow, diversity, getting into things sometimes just to learn and network too. There's a lot of benefit to that. And also having fun.
I got into the NFT space early. I mean, Blau was early, but I got in 2 months after him, beginning of 2021. People were like, what are you talking about? And I got in knowing, okay, I'm going to make some money, but it's not, that's immaterial. I more care about who am I going to meet in this process, right? I knew Gary was getting into it the same time. Now he's made more than anybody in NFTs, but me doing that introduced me, got me close with Blau, got me close to a handful of other guys, John Legere, the former T-Mobile CEO, and I became friends. And then it introduced me to a guy named Josh Buckley, who is of Buckley Ventures, arguably top 1/10% of venture capitalists in America. And young guy, 29, like just off the charts, brilliant, who happened to bid on one of my NFTs. And I'm actually seeing him today. He's in town. And now he has brought me into half a dozen of early stage in like explosive tech companies, because that's what he does 24/7.
Yeah.
So it's important to just jump in the water when your gut's telling you to jump in the water, even if everyone's telling you this is stupid. Why are you wasting your time? And I got told that when I was doing this. I got told how dumb it was. And it's like, why are you messing around with NFTs? Like this is a bubble. Like this just seems ridiculous. I bought a bunch of the, first launch of the Gary V's NFTs, and we're up 800% in the last 90 days. So yeah, it's things can go backwards, up and down, but that's part of the fun. I think you take risks. And I think that when you start getting into, let's say, speculative tech investments, don't ever part ways with an amount of money that would drastically change your life if you lost it. It's not Vegas, but still you have to approach it almost as if, okay, I could lose this and be okay with it. But the process of getting in the water is so important. You just have to get in the water, and the people you meet in that process can change your life.
I mean, I can relate. I had my own crypto coin and everyone thought I was crazy, but by having that crypto coin, it made me learn everything about crypto. So that was like an entry into, I have my own coin now. Now I should really learn about what to do with it, what's Bitcoin and all that.
100%.
And so and then that put me in touch. Now there's like in our network, we have 170 different creators on the Rally network. So
I know the Rally network very well.
Yeah. So like we're learning as we go. And then, obviously people behind the scenes, we're connecting and sharing insights, and we're learning together and growing as part of this community. We don't know how things are going to play out, but one thing's for sure, we're learning and we're connecting, which is the foundation of any career and any endeavor. So
it's huge. I invested in Polychain Capital in 2017, Olaf Carlson Wee's crypto hedge fund. Because what I knew is I didn't know enough about specific coins to place bets. In that time, I'm an idiot. I should have bought Bitcoin, but I hedged my bets with Polychain, and probably one of the best investments I've ever made. And this year, probably my second biggest investment was in a company called Strike, which is the Bitcoin neobank payment system, Jack Mahler's company. So like all the NFL players that are now getting their contracts done in Bitcoin, El Salvador and the Philippines and different countries Jack is the guy doing all of it. And I could talk about crypto forever, but yeah.
I know, me too.
The important thing is to get in, to understand. And I think my favorite, I'm stealing this quote from somebody, but like my favorite quote in the world, and the people that fascinate me the most, that I get along with the most, they have one thing in common. They are always in a perpetual state of curiosity, and you have to stay curious. And I
love that, because that's how I think about it. I'm driven by curiosity, not as much passion. And that, you need to be a lifelong learner, especially 100%. When in a world that's constantly changing.
Yeah. I'm listening to, as I was jogging, I'm listening to Astrophysics for People in a Hurry, which is what's his name? Neil deGrasse Tyson.
Yeah. He was on this podcast too.
Yeah. He's one of my favorite people in the world. He's great.
Awesome. So aside from being the lead singer of OneRepublic, you're also a top producer. How do you manage your time between both while pursuing other projects, some of which, with NFTs and different shows, and having a social life?
It's very tricky. I move at a very, very quick pace, and sometimes these things bleed into each other and it just happens. But for me, I have a team. Pretty much everything I do, I have at least one person who is as engaged and has as much to benefit or lose as I do in that endeavor. So I hire good people. I try to surround myself with good people. I try to be, especially if it's a field that I'm not super well versed in. I quote that I say all the time, and I don't know, I'm not trying to be, facetious, but I like to be the dumbest person at the table. If it's something that's new, it's like, I want to be me. And then the other three people have 60 years on me in that thing. If it's beverage, if it's CPG, if it's tech, if it's film and TV, I'm always approach it from this, a point of deference and wanting to learn as much as I can from them. So that is, if it's just me carrying the sack around at all times, trying to do all this stuff, I couldn't do it. So I have good help. That's number one, and good partners. And in terms of time balance, one of the guys in my band, Brent, helped so much, especially on this album and the last one. The first 3 albums, I was carrying 90% of the weight load for all songs. I was doing the lyrics, doing the melody, doing the music, and it became, it worked, thank God, but it took so much out of me. And now I've got a guy in my band that stepped up to the plate and realized I needed help and is delivered. So that allows OneRepublic to go on with TV and film. I have phenomenal partners. I have 4 or 5 TV series that I've now sold, and 2 feature films, and and of those 7 properties, 5 of them didn't exist at the beginning of COVID. They were all conceived during COVID and then subsequently sold. So I had a lot of free time then. Nobody that I know that is as active as I am achieves perfect work-life balance. It's just and I think this is going to be very controversial. I think that's overrated because it's a moving target and it's different for everybody. I have days where I go, today was perfectly balanced. The time with my kids, the time with my wife, the time and I try to remember what those days are and the timing of them. And I do my best to try to align, today will be one of those days because the second half of my day is kind of open. So I know I can get home, have dinner with the family. And I think that you have to be in the constant pursuit of finding that balance. Very, very, very few people live in that balance, and that's okay. I think if you just abandon it, and then you become an abject narcissist very quickly if you're a driven person. So I think that you have to just think about, the older I get now, I think about myself at age 70 or 80. And then that is the absolute best recalibration. If you think about yourself at 70 or 80 and you look back and you go, wait, I was, how many times did I miss this birthday or miss that? Or was I way too late for dinner because I was tweaking a lyric, because I was rapping a call, and I don't want to be that guy. So really only in the last year have I started to try to think about myself older. And the moment I had that switch turn, I doubled the amount of vacations this year. This is the first year. I mean, 2 to 3 times the amount of vacations in 2021 that I've ever done. And I've now made that a commitment that every year we're just, if I'm going to burn cash, I'm going to burn it on my family. That's an investment. The ROI is infinity. So I think you have to think about yourself when you're 70 or 80. It's really hard to lose sight of that. And in that, you try to find balance. But if you find somebody that's type A that's achieved that perfect balance, please email me, connect me with them, and then we can talk.
Exactly. Instead of work-life balance, I believe in work-life integration or harmony.
Yeah.
And I think that 60-40, 60 professional, 40 personal, for instance, that could be a balance for that individual. And that's going to change maybe every day, every week, every year, who knows, and I think that that's fine. In my 20s, I was working over 100 hours a week, and now I don't. But because I worked so hard in my 20s, life has gotten a little bit easier now in some respects. So I'm able to do things that I could never do anyways if I didn't sacrifice that period time in that period of my life. So it's all perspective and looking back,
I think that your 20s, you're a kid until you're 40. And even when you're 40, you're still just young. The whole thing is shifted in life expectancy, et cetera. But this is where Gary and I are similar lines. Once you hit 50, you're a grown ass person at that point, but your 20s, unless you are just exceedingly happy with a 9 to 5, which is fine. I don't begrudge anyone that does that. My stepdad did that. A lot of people I know currently, my friends do that. And if you like to just plug in after college and do your thing, that's great. I grew up with most people that did that. I'm from Oklahoma. What the hell is going on? I grew up with a lot of people from Oklahomans. The people that I went to college with that's very much ingrained in our nature. It's have the house, the wife, the white picket fence, the 2.3 kids. that was never me. That stuff terrifies me. I don't want to know what 5 years is going to look like from now.
Mm-hmm.
You know, financially, I'd love to know, okay, you're going to be doing fine. But like, aside from that, I don't want to know what I'm going to be into 2 years from now. It changes every single year. So I think that trying to, you know, for me, your 20s, throw your 20s on the chopping block. Like if you want to get where you're going, you have to sacrifice your 20s. And in some degree, there's a modicum of narcissism that is necessary. It's prerequisite to get to where you need to go. You need to focus on you. And I was like playing defense on dating and girls for like 20, 21, 22, 23. The first like 3-4 years of my 20s, I was like, I'd be like really into somebody, be like, nope. Like I could, because I knew once I go down that road, I watched so many of my friends, in my opinion, way too young, get way too invested in a relationship that then I watched them go from telling me this is what I'm going to do with my life. I can't wait to move to New York. I can't wait to move to, you know, Paris or London or pursue this, that, or the other. They get caught up in some sticky relationship and they're like, well, she's pregnant, or well, we're getting married. I'm 21. And I was just like, what are you doing? You know, no offense to the young married people out there, but I think your 20s, if you really want to, it's hard to spend your 20s just sticking around if you want to get somewhere.
And in 20s, it's all about experimentation. Like you don't know what you want to do
Yes.
long term. So that's why so many people, the younger you are, the more likely you are to job hop, because you're trying to obviously make the most amount of money and opportunity when you're young and learn. But it's also because it's not like you go to college and immediately think, oh, I'm going to be an accountant for the rest of my life. Like things will change.
Yeah.
And I think change is actually good. And one of the things that you're doing, and I'm doing as well, is we both teach classes on what our expertise is, and that's become more popular. And I think anyone who's achieved success, I think teaching a class online that's scalable to help more people makes a lot of sense. So when you're writing and producing a new song, how do you integrate the artist's personality into the music?
I can't speak for everybody, all writers and producers, but anyone that knew me as a child, anyone knew that I was a mimic. I was I do to this day in almost every session, the writers are like, Ryan, do your impersonation so-and-so, do your impersonation of so-and-so. I can pretty much do a dead on impersonation of a lot of different people. And so for me, that came in handy. I was an actor I was a musician before an actor. Then I got way into acting and character roles and thought that I was going to do that. And then went back to music, kind of arbitrarily. And the mimicking people's persona, like tapping into their, I literally close my eyes and I'm like, if I'm writing something from Miley Cyrus, close my eyes. And in that moment, I'm Miley. I know her well enough. I understand where her voice sounds great. And I would do that whether it was Adele or Jonas Brothers or Lil Nas X. I mean, you have to ideally spend time with the person to tap into their psyche. I need to know, are you in a relationship? Are you not? Obviously, I listen to familiarize myself with the previous songs they've put out that were successful, but you don't want to copy those. But at least it gives you an idea for subject matter. And then if you really want to cheat code, you go on their socials, and that's how you figure out what they're into. You go on their socials. If they're posting, if I see an artist I'm using it for instance, but if you see I don't know, an Ava Max or a Selena or a Dua Lipa post 2 or 3 songs, right? In a time span of the week that you're with them that they love. Well, you're going to look like a genius if you walk into the session and you've started a track that kind of feels like the thing that they posted 3 days ago. They're, oh my God, I love Drake. Well, everyone loves Drake, but I love Drake. And I wanted to do something that kind of felt like the song. And so those are the kind of the more hacks, but I'm not below doing those. I mean, I've 100% done that before. I've watched the artist socials and then, oh, they like that song. Okay. I'm not going to copy that song, but let's do something in the spirit of that. So yeah, that's kind of how I get into their subconscious. And then really and truly when I'm singing, I'm doing everything I can to to phrase words in the way they would phrase them. And that's where the mimic, like impersonation thing kicks in.
Yeah. So basically you do your due diligence, like what, before you meet anyone, before you even go on a job interview, you want to do, some scrubbing of maybe their LinkedIn profile, maybe what they're sharing online, information about the company. It's the same type of thing as you're trying to collect all this data that helps inform that relationship and the type of song you could write and produce for them. But it's also the secret sauce, because a lot of people could do that, is you have a certain gut for this. And that probably is connected to growing up with music at age 3.
100%. And I'm also a recording artist. So I think the one thing that
you can relate and you can empathize because you're also a musician.
The advantage I've had for years is that everyone I'm working with knows my band. They like either, whether they're my age or they grew up listening. Now more often than not, it's like I grew up listening to your music. Like I was in my 20s, they were like 12. But they know we are, for the better part of the last 13 years, our music has kind of permeated the ethos. And so the artists feel way more like instantly with me, I'd say that maybe than some other people, new writers, they feel a kindred spirit. They're like, he gets me. He's been on the road. He's done promo in Paris and had to wake up at 5 a.m. after not sleeping, and like
relatability, empathy. Yeah. He's like me.
He's one of us. Exactly.
I love it. And what's your best piece of career advice?
My best piece of career advice is, if you want plan A to work, do not have a plan B. That's it.
What if plan A doesn't work?
I don't believe in
you have to scramble for a plan B.
I don't believe in plan Bs.
You have a second plan A.
I fundamentally do not believe in plan Bs. I think that is the most dangerous thing in the world, is to give yourself a backdoor exit while you're pursuing plan A. Like it is. Do you think that like Columbus got in that boat and was like, well, if this doesn't work, I mean, no, he was lying about how far they had traveled and how many miles they had gone. He was lying to the whole crew because there was only plan A. And so I think that is fundamentally, how bad do you want it? And the only other addendum to that, I would say, and this is not necessarily a plan B, but this is what I personally did in my 20s. I gave myself a 5-year window. So, because you don't want to be the 37-year-old that's been writing songs or acting for 17 years and still just can't pay rent. But I gave myself a 5-year window. I said, in 5 years, I'm going to make it in music, or I'm going to make it in something else. And I always, as I'm talking, I'm thinking of other pieces of career advice. I said yes. Like I was Mr. Yes. Like you needed, Ryan, we need a song. Yes. Ryan, can you show up at yes? And you say yes until that one moment where you realize you can afford to say no. And for me, that's what I did.
It's so true. I literally just told that to Rick Ross like 4 hours ago. I'm like, you say yes early in your career for the opportunity and privilege to say no later on.
100%. And now I get to say no. Guess what though? I'm still out in the streets, like jumping from place to place, like chasing down sessions and artists. But
you love it, so it's fine.
I still love
part of the journey.
I love it. Do I wish that I could like kick my feet up and be doing it in the Caribbean? Hell yeah. But unfortunately, that's just not in the plans right now.
Well, that's great advice. And thank you so much for being on the show.
Thank you.